And now joining us is Cliff Stearns, a Republican of Florida, who is the ranking member on the Commerce Subcommittee on Technology. Congressman Stearns, after the federal FCC broadband plan proposal was released, you sent out a press release, and this is what you said. We'd like to get you to expand on this if you would. I am concerned that the plan may contain stalking horses for investment-killing ideas, such as so-called net neutrality mandates or a return to outdated monopoly-era regulation.
Well, Peter, this plan, as you can see here, I thought I'd bring the plan along so that everybody could see it. It's a pretty significant document. And Peter, it's got a lot of worthwhile things in it. I think a lot of the people who believe that the way to get omnipresent broadband in America is through the free market and not through government regulation. I was just, Peter, going ahead and saying, now, wait a second here. Be careful that you have a lot of mandates in this plan which would cause, shall we say, the people who are putting down the fiber optics to hold off and not expend the capital. And so I was listing two things that concerned me. One was changing the jurisdiction of the FCC on the Internet from Title I, which is really gets them into just the wires and connection. But if they put it into Title II, then they would have the jurisdiction on content, which a little worries me. That was one of my concerns. And the other was a term called net neutrality, which I call net regulation, which is if you are going peer-to-peer and you're downloading a lot of information, right now the Internet providers can manage that. But under net neutrality, the government step in and say, oh, no, you can't do that. And so just like at a traffic jam, you'd have no alternative but just to have the government saying you can't be involved at all. And so in a way, it's disrupting the Internet. So all I did, Peter, was bring forth a couple ideas that I had, put them out there. I have to be honest with you, there is not in this National Broadband Plan as provided a lot talking about that, which is good news. So I think I'm sort of relieved.
We just spoke with Chairman Boucher, and one of the issues that he raised was the Universal Service Fund. And he says that it will probably be necessary that USF funds go toward broadband deployment rather than landline telephones. Do you agree with that?
I do. In fact, the plan here talks about reforming the Universal Service Fund. And all of us know that when we started with telephones, a lot of the rural parts of the United States couldn't get telephones, so that there was a tax on everybody to help provide at expense of the government to give back money to people to provide telephones for the rural part of this country. So now the question is, do we need to change that? And I think we do. We need to really, shall we say, freeze the cost for universal service funds for telephones and to concentrate on broadband. Now, to get broadband omnipresent, I'm not sure that the way we're going is the best way. Now, Peter, the report, this plan that came out, says that 95% of the households in America have access to broadband. And 2/3 of those have high speed. 1/3 decided not to have it, but they have access. So we're down to about 7 million people in this country that don't have it. So the question is, how do we get those people? I don't think we have to spend a lot of government money to go across the other people who have it, but go to the people that are unserved. And as you know, the stimulus package had $7.2 billion to spend to help people get broadband. Well, when you think about it, that's a lot of money to help those 7 million people that don't have it. Well, it turns out they're starting to give contracts out to underserved areas rather than people that are unserved, and there's a distinction there. So I think the combination of the stimulus package is $7.2 billion, and the goals within here that Chairman Boucher mentioned, and I agree with, we need reform of the Universal Service Fund.
Congressman Stearns, one of the issues that has been talked about when it comes to broadband is competition. In your view, does this plan lend itself to competition?
I think it does, in the sense that it gives goals. You know, the plan says they want, across America, they want to have 100 megabytes for downloading and 50 megabytes for uploading. So that's a goal that I think can be achieved, and some countries are going to do it. Then further on in the plan, they talk about 1 gigabyte broadband. Now that's a quantum step upwards, but I think that's a goal. That's good. But the question is, can you get that through government funding, through government mandate, through government participation, or can you get it through the natural market? The market, of course, wants to sell broadband at higher speed. And I saw that the local cable companies are now advertising 100 megabytes broadband, and so it was just yesterday. In fact, most cable companies only have 5 megabytes. So I think the market's going to move there. I'm not sure that government needs to regulate too much to do it. So, but I think the goals of the plan are good.
One of the recommendations in the National Broadband Plan proposal, the FCC should consider free or very low-cost wireless broadband as a means to address the affordability barrier to adoption. Do you agree with that?
Well, again, we're moving back to, the government stepping in and guaranteeing for all Americans broadband and having it subsidized by taxpayers. Now, you didn't see the government step in to subsidize the iPhone. We have the new iPad that's coming out, and orders are going for that. Now, the iPod, everybody's got an iPod today, and the reason is the price keeps coming down. So I think the government has to figure out a way to do this so that the price of these for broadband comes down, and the government comes in and subsidizes and taxes it is not necessarily going to bring it down. So I would say I have sort of mixed reaction to what your statement is, Peter, because I think in the end, if we allow the market to work, the cost of broadband will come down, just like the cost of computers. The amount of memory on these computers is going up exponentially, and the cost has come down almost exponentially. So this can happen in broadband, and you just got to be careful the government doesn't step in with mandates.
Another recommendation, to accelerate broadband deployment, Congress should consider providing optional public funding to the Connect America Fund, such as a few $billion per year over a 2 or 3 year period.
Well, I think some of these programs they're talking about, I have mixed reaction about. I think when they talk about taking and providing more spectrum for wireless, that's a good idea. Selling off the D block, allow people to have more and more spectrum and get this off of the government and auction it off, which will create the allowability of more speeds for fourth generation wireless. And what they're doing here, remember, if they allocate any money, it's got to come from somewhere, and particularly with this huge deficit we have, and the president talking about a freeze in discretionary spending, although small, shows that the problem is that we got to be careful if we allocate more money for things that the taxpayer is going to have to pay for.
While the commission was developing the plan, were you in pretty close touch with them?
Well, not really. It went down a little bit on partisan lines. I think the 2 Republican commissioners were told about it, but they were not involved with the actual development. As you know, a lot of people came from outside of Congress, outside of the FCC, were hired, and I've asked how much money did they spend and who these people were. There's no transparency that I know of that has pointed out these are the people that were hired to develop this plan, how much money did you spend? And I don't think the 2 Republican commissioners know that. So I've actually written a letter to Janikowski, the chairman, asking these same questions because, here in Congress, lots of times there's hidden agenda. Unless you know who the participants were and who what they were paid, you really don't know. Perhaps there could be a conflict of interest. So my concern is I like to see lots of transparency. When you develop a plan, a national broadband plan for the country, you should have transparency.
And in fact, that letter was sent on March 12th, your
true.
letter.
That's
and you
true.
also asked, why was it necessary to delay the plan to March 17th from February 17th? Have you gotten an answer from Chairman Janikowski on that?
No, in all fairness to him, he probably needs some time to answer this letter. I think we've told him March 22nd, but I think he's going to be before the Telecommunications and Internet Subcommittee very soon. And so I'll be able to ask him directly if he intends to answer my letter, and perhaps I can ask him to also answer some of the questions that were in the letter, namely, why did he delay it, how much did it cost, and who are these people that developed the plan, and tell the American taxpayers who are paying for this who they are.